Welcome to the last live of the Paint 333. I've said that so many times. Beginner program. First of all, I just want to say, wow, I'm impressed. I know it's a free program, but y'all showed up like you had paid for it. Sometimes when we don't invest monetarily in things, we kind of feel like we have a free pass to maybe just do it when we feel like it, and I know I'm guilty of that. So I just think I'm just impressed because we had 76 people, probably less than that because people were submitting multiple works of art, but 76 total files shared to me and then put on the website. If you got my email today, you have those links to both share and see the art on my website. And I'm just blown away. I'm just so excited to be here and to be watercoloring with all of you. Thank you so much for joining me on this whole program, no matter where you're at in the program, or if you're not even doing the whole program, if you're picking and choosing. Either way, we're painting, we're winning. So we have a couple things to do tonight. Really excited. We are going to announce the winner of the January supply giveaway. Anybody who shared their art with me in January via that website form is eligible to win. I have already randomly picked the winner, and I'll show you how I did that. Then we are going to briefly just walk through the calendar for February so you get excited about what's coming. And then we are going to paint the fast fish together. I have not done a lot of homework for this fast fish, so we're going to see how it goes. It's watercolor. We're going to have fun. Hello from Georgia. Oh, speaking of from everywhere, we'll do this when we get there, but we have people all over the world joining us in this watercolor journey, and it's so exciting. Okay, so Michelle is saying she's going to try to paint while she eats her burrito. Oh my gosh, I should do that. Why, if a burrito isn't already good enough, add painting to it. Don't eat the paint though. All right, help me figure out mixing colors. I always end up with a brush full of thick paint. Yes, that's true. That's typically, so if I'm mixing colors in a palette, I will lift up color and drop it in a clean well, an empty well. And I'll do that until I get a nice pool of whatever color I'm adding to that clean well. Then I'll clean off my brush and do the same thing with the other color. So if I'm making purple, I'll add a bunch of pink to a clean well, and then I'll go in with a clean brush and start adding a bunch of blue to that well that has all the pink. So I would suggest if you're mixing in the palette, keep those colors separate until they're in the wells. You may be asking me though how you mix it once it's on the paper, and it would be similar, right? If you're painting with water and then you're dropping in pink, you would just pick up the pink, drop it in the water, take a clean brush, grab some blue, and drop it in the water, the same area that you had just dropped the pink. So I hope that helps you. Maybe I could demo that while we do the fast fish. I'll keep that in the back of my mind. If I want to scrape but the paint is too dry, how do I fix that? Scraping, you're not the only one who's had trouble with scraping. Even I am still surprised at the timing of scraping because it's hard to get right. If the paint has completely dried, it is too late to scrape. You will not be able to. So what I like to do is test it. And if you scrape when it's too wet, your paint will get darker in that scraped line. And so you'll be like, oh, it's still too wet, gotta wait a little bit longer. Wait 10 more seconds, try again. And just wait it out and keep trying. The other thing with scraping is you have to have enough pigment. If you have a watery mix on your paper and you try to scrape it, you're just not going to have enough pigment to scrape off. So I would, practice those things if you have some scratch paper. We're going to be scraping again tonight with the fast fish. So I will try to over-explain that a little bit as we go through the fast fish. Thank you, Ramona, for your excitement about my enthusiasm. I can't help it with watercolor. It's fun. Hello from Southern California. This is the first live that you've been able to make. Oh my gosh, that is so fun. I know it's tough because I kind of have to do lives when it works for me, which means it's not going to work for all of you. And all the lives I've scheduled in February, I've scheduled for 10 a.m. my time. So I know that's going to put some of you out, and I apologize, and maybe there's some way I could work around that and do more lives at different times in the future. I'll keep that in mind. All right, so why am I so insecure with cold press? I have the New York Central now, and both sides are they okay? I love sketching, not copying. Well, I'm wondering if you feel like maybe cold press has too much texture and you're kind of nervous about working with that texture. It's something you have to just lean into, and I would just say go for it. If it's new to you, it will be weird until you try it. With New York Central Art Supply, what I found does have a clear difference between the sides. The front will be more textured and the back will be a lot less textured. So I found with their cold press, the front feels like cold press, it has texture, but the back feels like hot press. So if you like hot press, use the back side, see how that works. Greetings from New York. I like to mix colors on the palette with a palette knife. That's smart. And you would have to do that though with your watercolors if they're soft, I'm assuming. Because once your watercolor is hard on the palette, you wouldn't be able to pick it up with a palette knife. But if you want to do that right from the tube and mix it with a palette knife, that's interesting. I've never done that. That is so cool. Hello from San Diego. I've watched all your videos. Oh my gosh, thank you. This is so fun, right? It's so fun to just, and people comment sometimes on my style, and if I had to kind of define it, I would just say that it's that combination, that contrast in realistic detail and blurry, abstract, interpretive elements in the portraits. And that is so, I just think that that's a really important principle to follow to make impactful art. Greetings from Montana. Oh my gosh, this is so cool. Is there a big price difference with hot and cold press? No, there shouldn't be. I doubt it. And if there is, in whatever brand you're buying, it would be minimal. I wouldn't worry about that. There is a big price difference between 140 pound and 300 pound. But again, New York Central Art Supply paper, even their 300 pound, I found is very, very affordable. So if you want to stick with 300 pound, I would try New York Central Art Supply and try their hot press. But just keep in mind that if you are struggling with your paintings look too tight and you really want to loosen up, I actually wouldn't recommend hot press, because when you put that water on the paper, it soaks in super fast. So for that reason, whenever I try hot press, I just end up hating it because it just soaks in and I have no time to do the fun techniques like scraping and color resist and dropping in water and even pulling color. Hard to do if the water soaks in and you don't have any more water to work with. But do not let me stop you from trying it. Some people love hot press and some people love rough. Lots of options for you. So keep asking me your questions. I love that. I will take a break and keep looking at those. But let's announce our winner. I'm going to go to my screen here. So we have 76 people submitted. Okay, not quite 76 because some people submitted more than one file. So we have 76 total files of art that were submitted. They are all on my website, or they will be because I think I missed a few, but they were all included in the giveaway. And I Googled the random number. The winner was number 57. So let me go to here and I'm going to scroll down. And these are all the files. And I literally just counted down to 57, and that was Michelle. And we had a few Michelles. So it was the Michelle who painted this funky fish. And that's who is the winner. So if this is your piece of art and you are watching, you are the winner. Congratulations. Super excited. I will email you after this live and get your mailing address. And I'm going to let you kind of choose what supplies you are the most excited to get. because you might already have, let's say, enough brushes or enough paint, or you might be really excited to try a bunch of different papers. So we have options for you. I'm so excited to hear what you're excited to get. So congratulations to Michelle. Let's go now. Oh, no, I'm jumping the gun here. Let's go scroll down. We are going to just quickly cover the February video calendar, which all of you, if you are on my email list, got today. We're doing, 5 different lives. 4 of those are paint-alongs, 3 of those are dogs. And then we also have a few other dog paint-alongs that will not be live. And then we have a couple supply videos. We're doing core watercolors. I'm going to do kind of a grainer brush compilation because I just think it's so important that I want to do a whole video just about the grainer brush. I'm going to do a supply highlight about Dorland's wax medium because I recently found a workaround for the only thing I didn't like about Dorland's, which is that it can kind of go on in an uneven way. And I found that a brayer solves that problem. Very excited to share that with you guys. A video all about animal eyes, and then a video about white animals, because that's tricky. So lots of fun things in February. We're going to do another fish. I just love fish. It helps us learn how to paint watery, and it helps us to learn how to paint fast, and it helps us learn to not overwork our paintings. And then I think, as of right now, I'd like to end each month with a live Q&A like this. And for February, I'm going to include like a student art showcase. So people who have submitted their art, and there's some really cool things happening in that art that I see that I want to point out. I'm just going to kind of go over different aspects of what exciting things I'm seeing from the art that you're sending me. I just want to give you guys a shout out because it's just so cool. So that is that. We get to paint this fast fish today. Yes, congratulations, Michelle. It's so exciting. Let's see. Hot press is good for botanical illustrations. I could see that. Absolutely. I've done flowers in the past. They are so beautiful in watercolor. Everything's beautiful in watercolor. You can't go wrong. And then I bought some gouache. What do I do with it? So gouache is just watercolor, but it's opaque. So you just have to kind of experiment with it. It's great you can combine it with transparent watercolor. You can use it all on its own. I follow somebody on Instagram who loves gouache, and she does some really cool things with it. She almost treats it like an acrylic paint, kind of. So if you struggle maybe with more loose techniques, or kind of getting that watery aspect to work for you, gouache could be something that you really enjoy. Actually, when I started painting animal portraits, they were all in gouache because it was just easier for me to work with and easier to layer color and get like whites back and stuff like that. So you don't have to be quite the master of watercolor, and working with gouache is just more intuitive and kind of a little bit easier, and it can look really cool. So that's gonna be fun. You're gonna like that a lot. Hello from Canada. 2 people from Canada. This is so great. Okay, if trying to use up my pigments that I have right now, but if you only had 3 to buy, which brand of colors? If I only had 3, right away I'm thinking primary colors, right? Your red, which I would do pink, blue, and yellow, because you can mix up a brown from that. It would be hard to mix up a black, but I'd probably just use blue for my black. Oh, that's hard. I would just buy black. I don't know. I couldn't do just 3. But you can do a lot with just the primary colors. But if I had to buy the absolute bare minimum of paints, I would buy the 3 primaries, buff titanium, and neutral tint. So I'd have buff titanium just because it's amazing, and you can do a lot with it, and neutral tint, so you have a nice clean black. Let's get started with our fast fish. So we have, I was going to just talk a little bit more about the winner here. Okay. Yes, you can send me multiple pieces of your art. It will increase your chances of winning, and I just think it's just like a way to appreciate all the art you're doing. So please send me any and all that you have done from my tutorials. We talked about that. And then I just think it's cool because we have art from all over the US, including Alaska, and we have art coming in from Australia, the UK, South Africa, and Canada. So shout out to everybody, all my international buddies, all my international artists. So today we are painting the Fast Fish, and the mood, I'm kind of going for a fast and loose look. I had somebody show me this really pretty Eastern artwork that was clearly watercolor, and was wondering how do I do that, and that kind of inspired this. So we'll see if that ends up happening. We're going to start with the eye like we usually do, and then we're going to move on to the body, and we're going to incorporate scraping. We're going to do pulling color for the fins, so that the fins are going to be nice and easy today. I think what I want to do first, maybe before I pull the color, actually I might do the fins, the first layer of the fins in buff titanium, because I kind of want there to be a little bit of a layer under painting, like a little layer of buff titanium, and then we'll pull the body color into the fins for like the lines. I don't know what you call those, but you know what I mean. And then we might glaze at the end. Could be fun to see those visible brushstrokes. But we'll see. This is just helpful because I really like planning my paintings, because then at least I know what to do when I come to each part. So I know that I want to do scraping here, I know that I want to pull color over here, and I know what colors I'm putting where. So you can just kind of get into that flow state, which is really the goal. Painting should be meditative and fun. It's also, especially when you're learning, it's work. So you have to, it won't always be super meditative every time you paint, especially if you're trying something new. But I like to try new things too. I'm not always painting pets. I have a landscape sketched out that I want to try, because it's good to keep learning and growing, and I really love landscapes, and I hope to get the hang of those even more so as I go. So we're going to do ultramarine. We're going to do azo yellow. I'm going to do pink next though. Pink, I'm going to kind of put the pink in the middle here, because I'm hoping with this pink color that we can get a little spot of orange happening in the fish, because I see some orange in the reference photo. Hopefully you're able to pull up that reference photo and use it along with this video as you're painting. And then we're going to use buff titanium, mostly because it'll give us some paint to work with, and because it just does really cool things when it tries to mix with other paint. So then we have our neutral tint. So I'm just going to kind of set this aside, reference it as I need to as we paint our fast fish. I am painting this on New York Central Art Supply 300-pound cold press on the front. I don't think you'll be able to see the back, but the back is clearly a lot smoother. That we kind of talked about that already. All right, I'm just adjusting everything here. So I have to go get my reference photo up for me to see. Okay, cool. I am able actually to see the chat at the same time. So pop in your questions and I will keep an eye on those as we paint the fast fish. Do you find it more comfortable to stand or sit while painting? I love standing up while painting, but it's not always feasible with watercolor. But it's, again, okay, so this is a cool question too, because if you struggle with loose and fast painting, where your paintings are really tight, try standing up and painting, because your paper will be at this angle, and gravity will take care of pulling your color down. And so you're going to have to find a way to work around that. Now, I wouldn't do that if you're painting those detail areas. You know, cut yourself some slack too. But when you get to those big areas of color, let the colors mix on the page, let it run, see what happens painting it up at an angle. I painted the dog Reba on an easel like that. And that was the dog where I discovered my style. And it was just so fun to just let the paint run and splatter and blend. And I was forced to paint faster. So try it. It's really fun. But I obviously for filming nowadays, I must paint while I'm sitting. So I have a heavy mix of neutral tint on my silver black velvet size 6 round brush. And I'm just painting in the pupil. Nice heavy mix. I'm going to see if I like a reflection, so I'm just leaving a little bit in there. But we might not need it, so I might fill it in at the end. But at least this way I have an out if I decide I want a reflection to make the eye grab our attention a little bit more. I'm going to put a tiny, if I can get a nice thin line, and kind of let it skip around the eye. And we're going to maybe pull in that color when we do whatever this part is. Is this the iris? Yeah, I think it is. Fish have really big eyes. Very cool. What do you substitute if you don't have buff titanium? Hopefully you have some other kind of white. So a Chinese white or a titanium white. If you don't have buff titanium or any kind of white, you could skip it. Or you could do a really watery mix of something like azo yellow if you needed to. So now what we were going to do, I kind of want to let that, actually, let's give ourselves a little bit of a leg up here with some outlines. So I'm just going to see, I'm kind of guessing this is kind of a see what happens, because I kind of wanted to paint it fast and just something like that. We might have to come back in and do that once we get watery and messy with the body. So I'm gonna wet my 3/4 inch flat brush. It has water in here. I kind of scrape it on the edge, and that'll get rid of enough water without kind of blotting it. Would get rid of a lot of water, and I don't need it to get rid of that much. Actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. We're going to do the 3-step process with buff titanium. So wet brush, and I am going to just tint it with a little yellow so you can see it, which, you know, it's going to be yellow too, but I want you to be able to see where I'm putting the water, so I'm going to put it all over the fins and the lower part of the body. And I'm being a little messy. I'm not too worried about making sure I'm completely in the lines. And sometimes if you leave little white spaces, hopefully you can see that, that ends up looking really good. The other thing with this tracing is I had a line right here because that's actually where the fin ends, and it seemed kind of harsh to me. So I ended up erasing that line just so it had, I don't know, I just think that looks better. Okay, I'm gonna go in heavy mix of buff titanium on my flat brush, the same brush I used to paint with water. And I'm just gonna drop it in down here and let it flow into the fins. And that looks really cool. It even looks kind of neat with a little bit of that yellow in there. I just like what's happening. So I'm going to actually drop in a little bit more yellow. Because the magic with buff titanium I've found is when it mixes with other colors. I'm going to keep yellow off of here though, because this is going to be very blue and I don't want it to turn too green until it gets kind of down here. So I'm keeping the yellow down there. Okay, so ideally we would let this dry before we pull color into the fins. So type in your questions because we might have a little bit of a waiting time here coming up, but we can go ahead and do a little bit of the 3-step process over here on the face area. So painting with water over here, just around the face. And look at that, oh, it's just so fun. It's so fun when watercolor, what it does. Very, very cool. So I painted with water there. Obviously I touched in these wet areas and it's starting to blend. And he has some purple right here and some orange up here. And both those secondary colors love or need to have pink. So I'm going to just take a tiny bit of pink on the tip of my brush here. Opera pink goes a long way. So we're going to see if we can lay it down. And I'm also kind of facilitating where it goes by painting it all the way into the edges. And even up giving it some lines. And I kind of like how it goes all the way up to that eye, so I'm going to make sure it goes that far. That looks pretty cool. So I'll clean that brush off. Get some orange by dabbing in a little bit of yellow over here. Just dabbing it in. Sometimes if you wipe, you're going to pick up a lot of that water. See how I'm picking up a lot of that water? But if I just dab it, it's letting go of that water. And so keeping it where we want it to be. That's cool. And you can tell it's orange. It looks different than that yellow. So those two colors were able to mix. And do the same thing. I just cleaned my brush, the same brush. And I'm going to just an ultramarine too is a little goes a long way. So we're going to see what happens when we put it in over here. And I'm trying to not get it too close to the yellow or the orange yet. Because I don't want green over here if I can help it. But he does end up, he kind of gets a little bit of this green gray happening over here. And we can also do whatever we want to do because it's our painting. So we're going to just have fun with this too. This is cool. I like what's happening with these color mixes. And this will be a little green, but I'm going to just try it. Going to get a little bit more ultramarine. And this is on dry paper, so you can see it's not moving anywhere. And just use the side of my brush there. And that looks really cool. I'm going to get another round brush. In my past videos, I've used this blue brush for just plain water. So I'm going to drop in water on this area and let it push that pigment to the edges. So I'm just tapping some water in so it can bully that pigment around and make some cool things happen with the watercolor. So anywhere that it's looking a little stagnant and not very fun, drop in water. See what happens. It will get fun. It will get fun when you do that. Very, very cool. Okay, let's see what else we got for questions. Somebody, also Christine says, you can mix your own black, ultramarine blue with burnt sienna. Absolutely. That would be gorgeous. A lot of people like doing that, mixing colors in that way, because you can get prettier blacks. So blacks that actually have some color to them. A lot of fun. I would absolutely try that. That's super great. Quinacridone magenta and perline green is that how you say it? There's a lot of colors that have wonky names. I bet that's so pretty too. So the cool thing with that is you are mixing complementary colors, right? And that's a great way to get a beautiful neutral, a beautiful black. So you can have fun doing that, and that's exactly what Thea is doing with that. Winsor, Newton, Daniel Smith, someone suggested Schminky. Yep, all of those are very good brands. I believe Winsor & Newton would probably be the cheapest of those options, with Schminky being the most expensive. They're all great. Schminky is amazing. I don't use it because it's very expensive. Daniel Smith is great too, and they have a humongous library of colors. So it's really up to you. Oh no, the looping video, I'm sorry. Yeah, technology, right? It's kind of crazy. Okay, let's go back to the painting. We're going to keep going on our fast fish. It looks kind of bright to me, but I have some really big bright lights shining on this. If it looks kind of bright to you guys, I can turn one of my lights off too. I'm going to just see. Well, that's kind of shadowy. But anyway, it looks a little bit more colorful, not quite so washed out on my end. Have you tried Roman Schmal? No, I've never even heard of that. You need to tell us what that is. Please share. That sounds fun. Let's do something fun here. So we want to do this blue at the top. And I'm going to try, sometimes you have to try, I have a wet brush, so I cleaned it off. It had buff titanium on it. And I'm just kind of dabbing it on the side of my water cup. And I'm going to get a nice heavy mix of ultramarine. And I'm also going to have my brush be really saturated. So you can have a heavy mix, but then, wipe a lot of that paint off so you don't have a ton in your brush. But I really want to soak that up. I want to have as much in my brush as I can possibly have. And we're going to just swipe it across the top. And it should bleed into these fins a little bit because they are still wet. We're just going to see what happens. And I wanted he has some blue, so I'm doing more of the side of my brush. And you can see this paper was dry, so it caught just the top texture on that paper. And how cool does that look? It is, what's happening here is just awesome. The other thing that makes this look good is that it's super saturated right here, and it gets a little lighter. The other thing that I really like is that we left a tiny bit of white space between this orange and the blue, just to give it a little bit more dimension. Okay, while this blue is wet, it will not be wet for long because we did not paint with water first. It does not have a lot of water. I'm going to see what happens here because this is just pretty. I'm going to see what keeps happening there. But we're going to see if we can pull some of this blue. We don't have a ton to work with, and we don't have a lot of time. But I like what's happening with this. And we just don't have enough to work with down here, but it's not very blue down there. Wonder if I need... All right, what I'm gonna do is get a watery mix and not too much of the ultramarine. So it's watery, there's not too much on my brush. I'm gonna tap it here and see if that will give me enough to pull in some color. I'm going to tap in a little bit on this fin, just so you can tell that he's actually has 2 fins. And I'm not going to scrape up here. I really like what this did. And if you, this is buff titanium. This is all buff titanium. Ultramarine too, because ultramarine blue loves to spread. So it's the combination of, we had that buff titanium laying down, it was still wet, and then we let the ultramarine blue touch that wet edge and blend into it. I just think that's so pretty, and it will make this fin look a little different than these fins, which is also really cool. I still have this watery mix. What I'm gonna try doing is blotting it quite a bit. I don't know if I really need to separate my bristles. I'm going to try to attempt to just capture the top texture. There we go. So I did pull a little bit of the ultramarine, but I just captured the texture of the paper with my brush. So very blotted brush, watery mix of ultramarine, pulled a little bit right here, but now it looks like he's shiny. So it's like, oh, he's still blue, but now he's reflective right there. How cool is that? The other thing I want to do is, he has this little shadow. So I'm going to get a little bit of pink and blue on my flat brush and make it look like this part of him has a little bit of is like more of his belly. And that looks really good. Now, if we want to scrape, we have to do that now. But I also don't know if we need to as much because of this reflection happening. I just think that looks really cool. And you can see some of this area is dry enough, some of it is not for scraping. It's always just testing it and seeing what works and what looks good. This bloom happening right there is so pretty. I kind of want to put a little bit more water in there. Oops, that brush was very dirty. I'm just going to lift a little bit of that out. Okay, putting in some water because I just like that bloom that's happening right there. I'm going to see if you can see that better. I had somebody else email me today too, asking if I could zoom in on different parts, which is just great. Okay, somebody said the ads are annoying. If you miss things, I believe you can go back. So I would try that. I believe even though it's live, you can pause and kind of rewind to catch something that you missed. So try that. You won't be like live at that point. You'll be a little bit behind us, but at least you won't have missed anything. Oh yes, and then the other student was just wondering if I could try to zoom in more often. And I think that's an awesome idea. I really appreciate that feedback because I'm kind of new to all this filming and teaching and painting at the same time. So please let me know if you have any other cool suggestions or ideas for me. I love that. So I've zoomed in, I think, there we go. I'll zoom in a little bit more. But I added some water here just to see what else we might be able to do with blooming. Okay. I keep trying not to burp, you guys. I burp when I'm nervous. And I'm like the best burper in the world. It's just intense. So I'm managing it well. Kudos to me. We are using a lot of flat brush today, but I really like it. I really like what's happening. I'm gonna grab this to see what color is on my flat brush. This is cool. So I still have that buff titanium. I probably have a little bit of yellow on there. I definitely have some pink and blue on there. And I have, it's very blotted. There's not a lot of wet water and there's not a lot of paint. And I'm gonna see if I can just make these little scaly shapes down here where it's almost dry. This is cool. That looks so good. And that's the moment where you're like, ooh, this is looking really good. I want to put it everywhere. And I've learned the hard way. You got to just put it in a very strategic area. Right here's way too wet. It's not going to show up. When I do that there, nothing happens because it's just too wet. I think I have a cat hair right there. That looks really cool. Okay. In general, love how this is going. I'm gonna keep that flat brush here. I'm picking up a little bit more pink, a little bit more blue. Again, it's very blotted though. You can see how dry it is, but I added a little bit more pigment here. And I'm gonna see if I can kind of distinguish this area a little bit better. So kind of doing the same thing, but making it a little bit more obvious where his body ends and where the fins start. And there, I'm happy with that. I think that's all that needs. Maybe a little bit over here on the tail too. Okay, let's do the iris. I'm gonna get a little bit of water here. And this is a little risky because the pupil is still wet. So I'm trying to paint with water but keep a little bit of a margin around the pupil, like a really thin margin. And sometimes it's fun to just touch the outside edge and let that color bleed in. You get some cool things happening if you do it that way. I'm going to add in a little bit of yellow. I'm just looking at his iris. It looks like there's some yellow here. Cleaning that brush because it looks like it's kind of muted. So that to me says, okay, buff titanium, to mute that, to tame it down a little bit, to tame that yellow color down. And it looks kind of purpley gray. So I'm going to keep this buff titanium on my brush, pick up a little pink. Now you can see I didn't really put down a lot of water because it's not spreading that far. Picking up a little bit of ultramarine blue for that purpley, and you can see how opaque it is because we have that buff titanium on our brush. So buff titanium too, it kind of turns your transparent colors into opaque colors, like gouaches it. It gouaches it. So I'm going to add, I'm basically just adding some water to it because I want it to look a little bit more watery, and bringing that out to the black line we gave it too, a little bit. And adding a little bit more water, maybe lifting if there's too much pigment. I can see a little bit more granulation when I do it that way. Just allowing that watercolor to do more watercolory things. Looks super fun. This is so fun. Now I'm trying to think. It's kind of done. Except you could add in a little bit more. What you could do is get kind of a mix of buff titanium and a little bit of neutral tint to give yourself a gray. Because black, like a super black neutral tint, could be a little harsh. But you could, again, go back in and kind of give your fish a little bit more definition if you feel like it needs it. It might not need it. I'm going to add a little bit right here even. It's a really pretty gray, I think. So this is just neutral tint and buff titanium. I'm going to just swipe it right here. Just giving our fish some features. But he doesn't need a lot. So we dropped water in right here, and you can see how it pushed the pigment to the edges. Isn't that cool? That is so, and it's so easy. It's one of those effects where if people don't know, like they've never worked with watercolor, they think, how did they do that? And then you're over here thinking, I just put water on it. You know, it's really is that simple. But you have to kind of know that that's what you have to do. Otherwise you won't know. So at this point it's all your fish. It's always been your fish, but you don't want to overwork it. Because of that fast look is what looks so cool. So I have some ultramarine on my brush here. And I'm just playing around and adding a little water. But I like how this iris is a little variegated with dark over here and light over here. I'm gonna just plop in some water. I'm lifting up too, but this looked a little tight and stiff right here, so this was already getting pretty dry, but I'm adding water and kind of lifting the pigment that's dry so that when we add the water, the dropping in water technique, it will actually move that pigment around. So sometimes you need to scrub it off for it to do that. And kind of doing the same thing here, scrubbing it, dropping in a little water. I really like this. Is so fun. And I think a little bit of splatter could be really fun. I love how the orange is only right here and that pink is kind of only right there. It really draws your attention to it. Makes it look cool. Let's just try some ultramarine blue splatter. I'm going to zoom out again so you can kind of see it a little better. See the whole thing. And then sometimes paintings look really finished once you sign them. So I usually play around with making it balanced with my signature instead of too, if I would have put it there, it would have looked kind of heavy. So I like it over there. There we go. That's our fast fish. It's crazy. It felt really fast. Let's check in with the chat again. See how things are going. You can pay for YouTube, then you won't get ads. Yeah, that's true. Oh, man. Oh, thank you guys. That's sweet. So, okay, so we're talking more about the Roman Schmal paints in Canada. That's exciting. Rockwell paints. Cool. These are brands I've never even heard of. This is fun. Mineral granulating colors. Oh, fun. I know Daniel Smith has Primatech colors, I believe they're called. They're made out of minerals and they're very shiny. That would be a fun thing to do if you are painting a fish. You could even just do kind of just what we did, but then glaze a layer of shiny paint or glitter or whatever over the top of it. How cool would that look? And give it that actual shine that fish actually have. This is really neat. I'm going to try the fish again tomorrow. Yep. Hey, that's what you got to do. The cool thing with fish is that they go by fast. So you can just try it and have fun and keep having fun with it. Okay, we are out of questions. Our fast fish is painted. Keep letting me know whatever you want to know for our next live paint-alongs. I'll answer questions even on the dog live paint-alongs that we have. And our next video is, so we're out of the 3-3 beginner program, but we're still going to be using like all the language and all the terms and all the principles and things that we learned in that program moving forward. So it's going to be a great foundation for you as we continue to paint. February is all about dogs, and we start on Saturday with the Black Dog Paint-Along. It's not a live video, so it'll be nice and edited and ready to go on Saturday. Thank you all for joining me tonight. This was a ton of fun. And congratulations to Michelle for winning the supplies. Keep sending me your stuff, and we'll have a supply giveaway every month. And one more fun thing. I am going to be on TV on Thursday. So if you're local to Minnesota, Twin Cities Live, the afternoon program on Thursday between the hours of 3 and 4. I don't know when I'm going to be on yet, but it's Thursday between 3 and 4. I'm going to be doing a demo and having the hosts fill in their dog portraits. I should be like, I got 6 minutes to teach these newbies how to paint. It's going to be a blast. Watercolor's awesome. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And I will see you on Saturday. Thank you, everybody, especially all you my regulars who keep joining me and asking questions and emailing me and all that stuff. I just feel like I have a little painting buddy group now. So this is super fun. Thank you all, and I will see you in the next video.